Hi, my name is Scott Hunter, and I'm here today to talk about ASP.NET. We just released ASP.NET 4.6 a few months ago. It brings a bunch of new capabilities like HTTP2, Roslyn support, which is running for the newest compilers for C# and Visual Basic. We added async model binding and a variety of other things. We already shipped that. I'm here today to talk about ASP.NET 5. ASP.NET 5 is a brand new framework that also runs on top of the existing 4.6 framework that you're used to. But it also has the capability of running on top of .NET Core. .NET Core is a new version of the .NET framework that runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's also different from the standpoint that it brings its features in via packages, which allows us to make the framework much, much smaller. And ASP.NET has the benefits of being able to run both on the full 4.6 framework and on .NET Core. You can see we've RTM'd all of ASP.NET 4.6, and today I'm happy to announce that we're shipping the release candidate for ASP.NET 5. The release candidate is fully supported and works both on .NET 4.6 and .NET Core. Let's talk about what's new in ASP.NET 5. One thing, it's totally modular. For the first time ever, we've actually made the framework where you can opt into what features you want. So if you wanted to serve files or you wanted to run the MVC framework, you can opt into each of those things independently and a lot more. Another thing is, as a developer, you want to be able to write your code faster and faster. Today, you've got to save your file, compile your code, and then launch the browser. In ASP.NET 5, you can just save your code and refresh the browser. There's no compilation step anymore. This knocks a couple of seconds off each cycle that you change your code. Another thing is, I work on the cloud team at Microsoft, and as part of that, I want to make it as easy as possible for you to take your ASP.NET 5 application and build it and move it to the cloud with the fewest changes possible. So we've done a lot of work in ASP.NET 5 to enable this. I talked earlier about .NET Core. .NET Core is really cool because it allows us to make ASP.NET 5 run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So cross-platform is a core piece of our technology now. Not only are we cross-platform, but we're totally open source. And when I mean open source, I mean you can download the source code for ASP.NET 5, you can download the source code for .NET Core, you can build the entire stack on your machine. But it also means you have access to that code and can look at it to learn how we built the framework and .NET. Another thing is being cross-platform, you might ask yourself, well, how do I build and compile this thing on other platforms? Well, we have an editor called Visual Studio Code that we've released, and Visual Studio Code runs on Windows, Mac, and Linux as well. And ASP.NET 5 works great with that editor. So you can use Visual Studio Code on a Mac to write an application and run it on Linux. Not only do we support Visual Studio Code, but we also support plenty of other editors using a library called OmniSharp. We can enable editors like Emacs and Sublime and others to work great with ASP.NET 5. And then I'm a web guy. I want the web to be fast. We've done a lot of improvements in ASP.NET 5 to make it one of the fastest frameworks on the planet. So next what we're going to do is go and show some demos of ASP.NET 5. So now I've got Visual Studio 2015 open with an ASP.NET 5 project. And let's show a couple of the new things here. First off, I'm just going to run the application. It's going to look like your traditional ASP.NET application. It's going to have a home page. It's got an about. It's got a contact page. I'm going to switch back to Visual Studio, go to my controllers, and open my home controller here. And I'm going to modify the code. So I've made some changes to the code. I'm going to press save, and I'm going to refresh my browser. Historically, in Visual Studio, you would actually have to compile your application, wait for that to complete, and then relaunch your browser. Now, because we don't require compilation anymore, I just save the file, refresh the browser, and I'm good. We're going to hope this is going to increase your developer productivity. Just to prove this, I'm going to right-click on my project here. I'm going to open a command prompt. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch Visual Studio Code, which is our cross-platform editor. And I'm going to have it open up in this same project. And now what's cool is I could come here, modify this same code to say modified in VS Code, press save, go back to my browser, refresh, and the code's going to update on the screen, showing that I don't even have to be in Visual Studio at all to make changes. This is because ASP.NET 5 knows how to compile itself. So let's go back to VS, and let's talk about a few more things. So if I open up this references node, you're going to see the two frameworks we talked about earlier. We talked about ASP.NET 5 being able to run on .NET 4.6 and ASP.NET 5 being able to run on .NET Core. Both of those are listed here because when I build an ASP.NET 5 application, by default, it compiles for both frameworks. Another change here, if I drill in to this .NET Core, you're going to notice that all my references now are packages. This is a change we made as we start trying to modularize .NET. So what we've done here is we've made everything in my references node a package. I can zoom in and show this, and I can continue to drill down into these things until I get to the metal. So I'll keep going here, and I'll keep going, and now I'm in System Collections, which is a package, System Runtime, and you can see we basically packagized all of .NET. This allows us to have a much smaller footprint on disk as you're building .NET Core applications. Another feature of ASP.NET 5 that's pretty cool is historically, when you've been building .NET frameworks, one of the challenges has been side-by-side. I want to have a .NET framework that's side-by-side with another one. Well, with .NET Core, your frameworks are just folders on disk. So you can see on my machine, I've got a Beta 8, I've got an RC1, I've got a variety of frameworks. I could just delete these right here and they'll come off my machine. So .NET is now side-by-side. I want to show another cool thing as well, which is I'm going to add a library here, required.js, to my application. So what I would do is I would come over here and I would say manage NuGet packages, and I'll search for required.js. It's a JavaScript library. So let's search for this. Press return. And notice that it says incompatible, use Bower instead. And so let me explain what this means. I'm going to click on this icon here. It's going to take me to a new package manager called Bower. Bower is a package manager for JavaScript libraries. Today, when you actually bring in a JavaScript library via NuGet, that's because somebody either writes the JavaScript library or somebody in our community has wrapped that library in a NuGet package. But the reality is most JavaScript libraries live in the repository called Bower. We've now built first-class support for this in Visual Studio. So you saw that I was able to search for a library in NuGet. It found a NuGet for that, but said, hey, you really should be using Bower, and brought me to the same kind of thing where I can search for packages just like I can in NuGet, but now I'm searching JavaScript libraries. Let me open my application up a little bit here. I'm going to open the lib folder, which shows my libraries that are installed. And then when I click over here and click install, you can see it's going to update. It's working. And you're going to see required.js show up here under my libraries as soon as the restore is complete. Here it goes. There it is. So that's how easy it is to add a library, a JavaScript library, to your new ASP.NET project. I want to show something else as well. We've been shipping a library called Bootstrap for a couple of years now. And what Bootstrap does is Bootstrap allows you to build applications that are device independent. If you're using the Bootstrap library, it's very easy to build an application that looks both great in a full desktop browser, but also looks great on mobile devices like tablets or phones. So we've added some new support for Bootstrap in this version of Visual Studio. So I'm going to open up my home page here. I'm going to go to my contacts, bring up the source code for that. Here we are. And I've got this new Bootstrap snippets in my left rail here. So what I'm going to do is, if I look at this app, let's go look at what this looks like in the browser. Let's go to Contact. I've got this phone number here. Maybe I want to put an icon that looks like a phone next to that. So how would I do that? I'm going to come over here, delete this line of code, move my cursor where I'd want to put that icon. I'm going to go right down here in my toolbox, select glyph icon. It puts the Bootstrap code right into my markup. I'm going to bring up IntelliSense here, and I'm going to type for phone, choose the phone icon that I like, save my file, go back to my browser, refresh, and I've got a phone icon. Super simple. So we're making it easier for you to add Bootstrap capabilities to your existing markup files. I want to show one last feature that's actually a pretty big feature. What I'm going to do is go to, I've got an older version of Visual Studio here running an ASP.NET 5 MVC app. And this is a login page. And you might notice a few things here. A lot of this page doesn't look like HTML. This is using a feature called Razor that we introduced a couple versions ago, which made it easier to write markup in these pages. You didn't have to write as much markup to use C# inside of your view pages. But you're going to notice things like HTML.textbox4 that doesn't really look like HTML. That's actually an input tag. And even more so, if I came over here and tried to bring up IntelliSense on my form control, my class, there's no IntelliSense here because I'm in C#. I can't get CSS IntelliSense when I'm in C#. So let's switch back to VS 2015 with ASP.NET 5, and let's open that same page up and see what it looks like. So I'm going to go to my account file here, open up the login page, and we'll hide a few things here, make it easier to see this. And now you're going to notice that my markup looks like HTML. Notice that instead of having a HTML.begin form that I've got right here, I've just got a form with ASP-controller. Any of these ones that are bolded that have an ASP- in them are tag helpers. And the benefit of tag helpers is they actually are the same equivalents of HTML.textbox or HTML.begin form, but they're done in a format where we use HTML attributes instead of using C#. Now what's cool, I can go down to my input tag here, which says ASP4 email, and now if I go to my class element and I space out here, you can see I've got my full CSS IntelliSense. So the benefit of here with tag helpers is your markup looks like HTML, and because your markup is HTML-ish, you now get the full control of our HTML IntelliSense and our CSS IntelliSense, all the great things our web team has built for us. So that's a quick show of a few things in Visual Studio. I want to talk about one more thing, and that's benchmarks. So let me jump and bring up a page I've got here. There's a benchmark out in the public called Tech Empower. And we started running the Tech Empower benchmark internally at Microsoft. And if you look at the screen here, you can see what our latest results are. What we've got here is I've got Node.js, which is running 144,000 requests a second. And you can see ASP.NET 5, we're already running at 443,000 requests a second. That's quite a bit faster than Node.js. I've got Scala here, and Scala is where we're aiming for. It's running at 1.5 million, and the team knows what we have to do to get there. It's going to take us a few more months, but hopefully by the time we RTM, we're going to be in the top 10 fastest web frameworks on the planet. Next, what I want to do is I'm going to switch off my PC and show you how easy it is to build an ASP.NET 5 application on a Mac. Okay, I've now switched to a Macintosh, and I'm going to show that ASP.NET is cross-platform and runs everywhere. So first off, you might ask yourself, how do you build an ASP.NET application on a Mac? Well, I'm going to type Yo, which stands for Yeoman ASP.NET, and it's a template generator, which is going to let me build templates for ASP.NET 5. So I'm going to choose a Web Application Basic, and it's going to ask me for the name. I'll press Return. It's going to build me that application. So I've got an app on my Mac now. So what I'll do is I'll go into that folder, and the first thing I need to do is restore my packages so my application can run correctly. So I'll do that restore. It'll go out to NuGet, grab the packages required for my application to run, and then I want to show, I can type code dot, launch Visual Studio Code. You can see it running here. It shows all my application. I can go to my controller. I'm going to get the same IntelliSense and stuff that you see in Visual Studio on my Macintosh in VS Code. You can see it showing my references and stuff like that. But I'm not going to deep dive into that. I just want to jump back and show that I can actually run this application. So I'm going to type DNX Kestrel, which launches our web server. My application is going to start up in a second here. There it goes. And now I can just launch the browser, and we can go to localhost 5000. And my same ASP.NET application that you saw running on a Windows machine is now running on a Mac. So I've showed how easy it is to start a new ASP.NET application on a Mac, edit it with VS Code, and run it. This is showing the true cross-platform capabilities of ASP.NET 5. You've just seen some awesome demos on ASP.NET 5. To learn more, the best place to go is www.asp.net. That's the homepage for ASP.NET. You can learn a lot more about it there. We also have a brand new docs site, docs.asp.net, and there you can read all the docs on ASP.NET 5. And finally, my team does a weekly stand-up where we get on stage, broadcast to the internet, and talk about ASP.NET, the tooling, all the stuff we build. You can go to live.asp.net every week and learn more. Thank you very much, and please check out ASP.NET 5.